Find yourself today. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Look, just a little bit of housekeeping, just so you know what you're getting into today. We're going to kind of cover the gamut here. There'll be a little bit of 101 type of instruction on Twitter for those of you that are maybe a little apprehensive on how to get started. And I'm certainly going to talk about some more robust tools, third-party tools that you can use to advance and enhance your use of Twitter as a recruiting tool. We're going to run about 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. If you find it's too remedial for you, you need to bail out, by all means, go ahead and do that. You're not going to offend anybody here. So that's kind of what we're going to take a look at. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now listen, the objective here is to help you use Twitter as a tool to really improve the way that you're connecting with your candidate marketplace. It also has the added benefit of increasing the social signals of your organization and really, or you as an individual. And social signals is really another way to kind of say search performance. So let's get in and talk about the agenda here first. We're going to, again, talk about the basics, then we'll get into some of the how-tos, how to search for followers, how to gain new followers, how to identify candidates. We're going to talk about sharing and then ultimately engaging as well. Again, it's a multi-directional communication tool, so we want to not just be broadcasting, but we want to listen and we want to respond as well. And that's the best way to connect and engage your candidate marketplace. So let's talk about the basics. And again, this if you're looking for some more advanced topics, hang in there for this brief discussion because it's only about 5-10 minutes at the most, but it's important to kind of make sure we're all level set before we get into the advanced tools. So for those of you that may or may not be using Twitter, this is what it looks like if you go to twitter.com. All you really need is an email address, and you can create a Twitter ID. This happens to be mine, and I'm just going to walk you through what you're looking at here. First, in the upper left is your profile. It's just a really quick synopsis of you, how many tweets you sent, how many people you're following, and the number of followers that you have. You're also going to see a Twitter feed. I find most are more familiar with Facebook, so it's very similar to the Facebook news feed. As you follow people, when they tweet something, it will show up in your Twitter feed, much as you see here. So all of these people I'm following. Trends. Trending topics, you probably hear that a lot. As a matter of fact, just to give you a little anecdotal evidence, I was at a local pizza parlor over the holiday, and there was a young boy in there. It could have been more than maybe 9 or 10 years old. And on the front of his shirt was emblazoned with his elementary school's mascot. And on the back, it said, "Success is trending." On the front, it was his mascot's name with a hashtag. And on the back, it said, "Success is trending." So it's, it's entering into our cultural language and communication, so it's important for you to know what that means. A trending topic or a phrase on Twitter is something that's just achieving a high level of volume at that moment. So, for instance, you could see on this day that I took the screenshot, I think it was, Elmo, the controversy over the puppeteer who handles Elmo was kind of breaking at this time, so you can kind of see that certain things that are being talked about over Twitter begin to drive traffic and trends. You're going to see these funny-looking links if you're not familiar with them. These are just shortened links. Twitter has their own link shortener, but there's a host of third-party tools you could use as well. It's ultimately not too important for the beginner. What is interesting about link shortening, almost every link shortener, if you copy and paste that URL into your browser and put a plus sign after it, you'll actually see the stats for how frequently that link has been shared. So that's just a little takeaway for you there. But the important thing is don't be afraid of those links. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the tools will give you a preview of the link before you click into it, so you don't have to worry about going to a site with malware or something of that nature. All right, let's kind of take a close look at the profile. Again, when you get into Twitter, you're going to want to add a recent picture. That is yours truly. So that's a picture from the fall that I've added in here. I try to change my picture every 6 months or so. So again, just something you want to do. You don't want to have just an icon, a little egg that Twitter gives you. That's kind of a cue that you're really not that engaged in Twitter. So you want a recent picture or something that represents you or your company. You want to add a relevant link. We have a blog that we post to just about every day here. It gets quite a bit of traffic and conversation. So instead of just yo.com, we put our blog up here, which is Seamless Workforce. In addition, I have a personal blog that I write to sometimes, and I'll have that link on here as well. So you just want a little bit about yourself and a link in the bio to kind of help the candidates that are eventually going to engage with you understand what you're all about, what you recruit for, what your company's about, etc. Next thing is when you get on Twitter, you're going to want to start following. Now, listen, Twitter offers up some suggestions right out of the gate. So they'll offer some celebrities, some sports figures, some news outlets. So just start following people. Twitter isn't much good unless you actually have people that you're following. And then lastly, and this is, believe it or not, this is an underused feature of Twitter. You're able to build lists of whatever categories you want. You could use lists to build regional categories or a particular brand or something like that. At any rate, lists are groups of people that you follow that have something in common as determined by you. So it's similar to, if you're a Google Plus user, it's similar to circles. In your Facebook, it's similar to the groups or your lists of friends, different types of lists of friends that you build in Facebook. But again, the biggest difference with Twitter is that it's a much more open system. So, and you want to follow more people to gain more information. It becomes a little unwieldy, however. Lists help you manage that. At any time, you can actually click into this list link and then go down and just see what just that list is offering up. And I'll give you a good example of this. I kind of enjoy politics for the sport of it. So I have a column labeled, I have a list labeled left. I have a list labeled right. And during the political season of the most recent election, it was pretty entertaining to watch, say, during the debates, what the left list was saying versus what the right list was saying. So that's just an example of how you could use lists to better filter your Twitter feed. Okay, a little bit of more Twitter 101, and then we'll get into some more advanced tools. For those of you that aren't on Twitter, or maybe it's a little cryptic to you, if you see the letters RT when you share a tweet that you found interesting, it's usually, RT means retweet. Okay, so let's say what retweet means. Retweet means if you see a link or a post or a tweet that you find interesting, you retweet that. So what you basically do is you're putting that link out over Twitter. So in other words, you're tweeting it. It's similar to a like on Facebook. It kind of tacitly endorses whatever the tweet says, so that's how it's kind of used. That's what RT is. Sometimes you'll actually see the letters MT before a tweet. That means that the person modified the tweet slightly before they sent it out. I'm seeing it more recently. I guess it's just more of a courtesy to the original author of the tweet. 140 is the number of characters that you could use, so you could say anything in Twitter as long as it is 140 characters or less. That includes any links that you might include. There's also a term called favorites. Favorites is tagging a tweet in your feed with a star. It communicates to the world that you liked the tweet. It's also an excellent tool for sharing a tweet to read later. If you're on the train on the way in the morning or rushing out the door and you see something in your Twitter feed that maybe you want to get to later, there's other ways to do this, but one way you could do it is by favoriting that tweet. By the way, it's important to know that everything in your Twitter feed, just about everything, is public. So if you favorite something, you're going to see everyone in the Twitterverse, as they call it, will actually see what you favorited. The only way to minimize that is to lock your account, and that therefore only the people that are following you could see your information. But that's really not the point of Twitter. Twitter is much more general and open, so I would encourage you to have an open account, not a closed account. Let's talk about hashtags, a little pound sign here. Hashtag is a way to categorize your tweets. So for example, if we're talking about recruiting, you might have see the use of hashtag hiring. And it's a standard hashtag that's being used when I'm actively looking for somebody in an open position. Or hashtag job. That's another common hashtag that's used when someone posts an opening over Twitter. So if there's candidates that are out there that are savvy and know how to use Twitter, they're going to search for hashtag hiring. And they might even actually have a more advanced search around maybe particular types of opportunities they're looking for, and then include the hashtag. So it's a way to kind of categorize that tweet. The @ sign, you're going to see the @ sign all over the place in Twitter. The @ sign is the first character in all Twitter handles or Twitter IDs. Now it's important because that next line down there talks about conversations. Now, conversation is a series of tweets between me and you. So If you're John Smith, I could say, @John Smith, hey, did you watch the BCS championship on Monday? And John replies back, yes, I can't believe Notre Dame got beat so badly, or something to that effect. Now listen, the only people that will, now those tweets are public, so if somebody wanted to go into my feed, they would see my conversation with John Smith, but they're only going to see them when they happen if they're following both John Smith and Joel Caparella. Okay, so again, just a little bit of a nuance there. If you want to reference somebody in a tweet, but you want the world to see it as well, so you want it to appear in everyone's feed that follows you, if you place a period before the @ sign, then it will appear in the public feed, and it will also appear in the feed of all those that are following you. Speaking of following are the people that you're interested in, that you want to see what they're saying, and the followers that have shown an interest in what you're saying. Want to keep an eye on what you have going on. Okay, so that was a little bit quick. That's the 101. I'm going to answer some questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, save them towards the end, and I'll cover as much as I can. All right, let's move on here and talk about searching for followers and candidates. All right, I'm going to jump in and show you a host of third-party tools. I mean, Twitter's a great tool. It's got some great capabilities, but it's enhanced greatly when you use some third-party tools. The first one that I like to use quite a bit is called Social Bro. It is a free, as of right now anyway, tool that will let you do and conduct advanced searches and look at some of your network analytics. And what I mean by that is the people in your network, the people that you're following or are following you. When are they most active? When do they frequently read their tweets? When are you reading your tweets, etc.? But let's take a look at it from the perspective of identifying who is out there that you should follow, or in the case of recruiting, who's out there that you might be able to recruit. Here's a quick screenshot of the dashboard. Now, don't be intimidated. It's a very robust, advanced tool, but there's only a little bit of the functionality that I think you need to use to get started. And again, it's advanced search. It's active user analytics. It allows you to quickly add multiple followees, and then it also provides some great influence insight. In other words, who's active and how frequently do they talk and who are they engaged with, things like that. So let's take a look at how I might use this. So the first thing on the left here is there's a pretty robust filter criteria. I could say I want to take a look at people in a particular time zone. Now look, caveat it, I haven't identified in my profile where I am in the world. The time zone's not going to be as effective, so just realize that. But basically you could see the different criteria that you could use to filter out your search. And again, here we're searching for people that are actually active on Twitter. In the second column there, you see advanced search items. Okay, again, this is like keyword search. It adheres to all Boolean kind of language that you would expect, so you could do and or not. In this case, I've searched for the term agile. We've been doing a lot of agile recruitment here at Yo recently, and a lot of agile research on the agile development methodology, so I thought it would be a good example. So you have some useful filters, and again, the advanced search is probably the best way to really narrow and pinpoint what you're looking for. So let's take this example. If I'm looking for agile developers to follow because I want to connect with that community and I want to start to source candidates ahead of the demand of my company or a particular client, this would be one particular way that I can go ahead and do it. What do the results look like? Well, the results kind of look like this. It returns back pages, if your search was very broad, of Twitter users. Now, here's what's great about this. You could immediately see, first of all, people always ask what the little yellow number is. The little yellow number is Social Bro's calculated influence score. So it's very subjective to their algorithms, but it basically says in the upper left there, Jeff Sutherland is 43, which is higher than on the bottom left there, Jason Bennett. You can see that Jeff's got a lot more followers. That's a big reason why the influence scores up. So you don't have to necessarily pay attention to that, but what does it look at? So let's take a look at Colin McCabe here. He's in Lakewood, Ohio. Maybe that's where I'm recruiting. So I would go ahead and take a look at Colin's detail, and this is what's great about this tool, because you can't really browse profiles like this quickly in Twitter itself. So that's a big reason why I like and recommend this tool. You can determine a couple things right off the bat. Are they following me? Am I following them? And that can be discerned right up here in this little arrow. An arrow from the left to right means they're following you. So if it's lit up, they're following me. Right to left, and that's lit up means I'm following them. But you can take a look right off the bat at his profile. Says, hey, I'm a certified Scrum Master and Microsoft Certified Technical Specialist. Well, shoot, perfect for me because maybe that's what I'm looking to recruit. And oh, by the way, he's It's working at Accenture, so okay, got some good DNA, Colin does. So this would probably be a good person to at least interact with to see if I could begin to build out a good, robust network or talent community of people that could be targeted towards the demand that I anticipate. It also lists out their latest tweets. So that's another good criteria as well, because it'll show you what they're talking about. You know, if they're talking about Agile, if they're talking about the skill set, it means they're very involved and is a big part of who they are, at least in a digital footprint perspective. So a couple things can happen here. I could tweet directly from Social Bros. I can connect with Colin here. I could actually add him to a list. So maybe I'm building a list of Agile Scrum Masters, or I could actually begin to follow him right from here. Now, what's great about the tool is as I perform this research, I could then collectively follow and mass follow large numbers of people. So all I do, you can see Colin's gray here, and over here, Victor's also gray. These are people I selected, and then I click the add button, and they're added. Now, listen, one note of caution. You want to add no more in this fashion than 25 a day, 50 at the most. And why is that? Because Twitter takes a look at how their API is being used. And if a tool is mass adding and an account is mass adding followees using a third party, they assume it could be potential spam. So you want to be cautious, or else your account will get locked. It will eventually be released, but you'll have to request that it be released and whatnot. And it's a bit of a hassle. So save yourself the trouble and don't add more than 25 per day. You'll definitely be safe with 25 or under. If you want to push a little bit, do not go over 50. So that's my recommendation. But the point is, you could also unfollow big people this way too. It's an excellent management tool for your Twitter followers. Now, again, some of the purists would say, oh, well, you shouldn't have people in this fashion. You should engage every person. And I absolutely agree. Twitter is an engagement platform. But in our business, we're looking to connect with large numbers and communities and get connected with them as quickly as possible, to listen to what they're talking about, to engage in this conversation. This is an excellent way to do it. So, don't listen to necessarily what the so-called social media gurus / Twitter gurus would say. There's nothing wrong with adding large numbers for the purpose of gaining some insight into that community. That's my personal opinion. And listen, we use these methods here, and it works because you end up getting much more engaged in this fashion. All right, let's shift gears here and talk a little bit about sharing, because this is very important, because it's again a platform, right? And we want to be able to share over that platform. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I'm going to introduce another app, and again, please don't get frustrated here, because I'm going to introduce a lot of third-party apps here. This one's called Buffer. You can find it at bufferapp.com, and I love this tool because it facilitates quick, easy, and well-timed tweets. And let me show you what I mean by that. And now, I'm going to have to apologize. I just noticed last week that the Buffer interface has been significantly changed for the better, mind you, so this is a little dated, so forgive me that. But what Buffer does, it allows you to create a schedule of tweets to send out over the day. Now, again, I'm going to caution you here. Some of the social media / Twitter purists would say, oh, never automate your tweets. And I'm not of that mindset. I think it's okay to automate your tweets. There's obvious things to be aware of when you do so. I'll talk about those in a second. But what Buffer does, it says, hey, every day, if I send something to my Buffer, here's when I want those tweets to go out. So you could see that, if you look at my full Buffer, I have them running from first thing in the morning all the way to just about midnight. And again, I don't have to send all my tweets over there, but it allows me to easily facilitate things that I want to share with my Twitter feed. Now, why am I doing this? Because that keyword sharing, right? I want to share that information with those people that are following me, because I want them to, see what I find interesting, get some comments on what they find interesting, see what interests people the most, etc. And Buffer allows me to do that. So I'll show you how to do it in a second, but this is what it kind of looks like. As I start to share those things, the Buffer actually gives me some analytics. It shows me, hey, which of your tweets are being shared, which ones are being read. And look, you're going to be shocked, right? Not everybody's reading your things. Not everybody's clicking into it, okay? Usually it's like a 0.1%, or you get like a 1% click through on your tweets, you're doing pretty good. But the conversion rate is not what's important. What's important is you're constantly and consistently sharing out information that you think those that are following you would find interesting. Okay, and again, we're talking about recruiting here, so you do it in the purpose of whatever you need to do to engage that talent community for the demands you're sourcing for today. Again, the analytics are just nice to know. So let me give you an example of that and how I use it. And actually, before I do that, let me kind of ad hoc this a little bit. Let me go over to my LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is probably one of the best areas that I like to share information. This is a post from us, from Yo, and it's about agile development methodology. It's an infographic that we released earlier this week. So I'm going to go ahead and click into that from LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, and I'll show you a little bit more about this in a second, but I actually wrote the post. It's a little bit self-serving. But if I'm using Chrome or Safari or Firefox, I actually put a little plug-in on my browser. It doesn't exist for IE, as far as I know, but it does for the other browsers. So all you need to do is click that buffer icon, and then it immediately brings up the title of the post, and then it lets me know the site that it comes from. I usually delete the site that it comes from because it takes up characters, but it now what I like to do is I like to add some color to this, or I like to personalize it a little bit, because I find that personalization of the tweets increases the number of clicks, increases the level of engagement. So I might ask, are you seeing site agile talent environment? So I might add that. There's the infographic, and then I add it to the buffer, and away it goes. So if I keep that buffer topped off during the day, all day long, things that I share are going to be sent to my buffer. Okay, that's kind of how it works. Now, listen, let's get back to the slide presentation. I'll talk about that one more time here. But again, so this is another example. So I've got this. Here's what I sent on this particular day, an article from Wall Street Journal talking about how Google is tweaking its search rankings. And then I talked about, hey, this is interesting, is the value of inbound links dropping, and increased the number of clicks. Again, personalizing that message. You don't have to personalize it, and I'll show you a way to just go ahead and let it run. But I do find personalizing this message, asking a question around what you're sharing, is very relevant for those that are following you, and it will increase the level of engagement. So I would recommend that. So again, it sends these links directly to the buffer application. So you could either go into bufferapp.com and share those links there. Whenever you see this icon, whenever you see this icon here, you're actually going to be able to send. So instead of sending it to Facebook, you'll actually see a buffer icon on some blogs and some news sites. And again, as I mentioned, you have a plugin that's available for Chrome, Safari, or Firefox. I would highly recommend that you use those. There's mobile plugins as well. So if you're on mobile a lot, I would do that as well. Now, again, I showed you one example from our blog, but what do I typically do? Here's a real case scenario. I use LinkedIn almost every day to fill up my buffer because I think it's a great resource, right? LinkedIn consolidates and curates a lot of content based upon my interests, and I use that curated content to share to my network. So let me go ahead and show you how I go ahead and I do that. So if I'm on LinkedIn, I'll actually go to LinkedIn Today. By the way, if you're not using LinkedIn Today, I highly recommend it. LinkedIn Today is exactly as I said, is a content curator based upon the things in your profile or the companies you follow or the topics that you're interested in. So let's take a look. IBM granted most U.S. patents for 20th straight year. Okay, that's interesting. You know, in the IT world, patents is in the news quite a bit. So I click on that. It launches the site. And this time I won't personalize it. So I'll click my buffer. And all it does is brings up the title. Now, again, I'll remove Bloomberg because I want to save the space. And then I want to send it away. So that just gets it and adds it to my buffer. So it's as simple as that. Now, listen, look at the caveat about automation. Let me talk about that in a second. There's plenty of horror stories over the social web about companies that were automating their social feed only to have some horrible results. So, for instance, this is a terrible example, but it's pertinent. Concert promoting organization in the summer was promoting a concert of a popular artist in the Midwest. There happened to be a pretty dramatic storm that brought the scaffolding down, and actually 3 people lost their lives in the accident, right? They had tweets automated to run that evening right around the concert time to ask people to post their pictures from the event. Well, they didn't take those tweets down from their automation schedule, and it was a pretty, not only embarrassing, but a very insensitive situation to have happen, you know, as a result of the tragedy earlier in the day. So the lesson learned is, I'm not going to tell you not to automate. I think automating content is an okay thing because we only have so much time during the day, and sharing information that you find interesting is part of social media, so I'm not going to tell you not to do it. If you do it, however, you probably want to be cautious with your automation and be mindful of situations that could be seem insensitive or something like that, so just be aware of that. Okay, let's talk about another tool. This one is called Twitter Feed, and you can find this one at twitterfeed.com. This one actually uses an RSS feed to do the same thing, essentially, but it gives you the ability to create more robust criteria over what to feed. So I could use, I'll give you a great example of this one. There's a site that I read quite a bit called Pando Daily. It's founded by a woman named Sarah Lacey, used to work for TechCrunch. She's very in tune with the startup culture in Silicon Valley, and it's a lot of cutting-edge tech. So, I like what her site shares, and it's relevant for some of the things that we do and how we recruit. So, and for the candidates that we might be interested in connecting with. So I can build an RSS feed here that lets me search her site, pandodaily.com, for specific keywords. I can get very detailed if I want. And then anytime an article actually meets those keywords, I could use Twitter Feed to send that article to my Twitter feed. Oh, by the way, I could also post a LinkedIn that way. So if you have a corporate blog and you want to send your information from your corporate blog to your LinkedIn every day, every time there's a post, you can set that RSS feed up very easily. So again, another automation tool to be used to simply share information with your Twitter following that you think they might find interesting. And again, why are we doing this? Because we want to engage. We want to create opportunities for engagement. The more information you share, by the way, your follower count will go up. What you'll find if you use these techniques is that every day the number of people following you will increase because people are searching for particular stories and whatnot. And if they find a story through your feed, likely, the odds are likely that they're going to add you as someone that they want to follow. So that's a big reason. And by the way, this works. I would challenge any of you on the call, if you employ these strategies as we're talking about them today, I guarantee you if you're at, say, 50 followers today, you might be upside down on followers, yet you're following more than are following you, but that's okay. But if you'll be at 600 to 1,000 followers in no time. You have to be religious about it. You have to be disciplined, but it's a way to increase followership. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of, hey, increase your follower count. That's not what it's about. But the more followers you have, the more broadly your message is broadcast, and the more opportunity you have for engaging the candidate marketplace. And we have to remember that's what we're trying to do here is keep ourselves engaged with the important candidates to source ahead of the demand that our companies need or our clients need. So let's talk about that engagement. I think it's a perfect segue. I'm going to talk about another tool. This one is actually owned by Twitter. It wasn't always the case. It's called Tweetdeck.com. Again, if you're using Chrome, you could actually use this embedded into Chrome. Otherwise, you'll have to download an application onto your desktop, on your Mac or your PC. But it's again, it's not a third-party tool because it's owned by Twitter, but it's a great advanced Twitter client. So let me show it to you. So again, if you know this already, you're already kind of in the advanced realm here. But what TweetDeck does is it takes those lists that we talked about earlier and lets you organize them by columns. It's as simple as that. Okay, it lets you also monitor hashtags. So let's keep talking about Agile. If Agile was a term, it was an Agile conference I wanted to follow. And that's a great example. Conferences always have hashtags. So if you can't make the conference, but you want to follow the conversation that's happening at that conference, follow the conference's hashtag, and then you'll have a column dedicated just to that hashtag. Anytime somebody adds that hashtag to a tweet, it appears in that column. It also lets you manage multiple accounts, including your Facebook accounts, and I think your LinkedIn as well. So it's a great way to manage multiple accounts. You could share multiple feeds. Now listen, another caveat. The second horror story over social media is always the case where people were using their corporate, one tool to manage their corporate Twitter account and their personal Twitter account. If you use a tool where you're managing multiple Twitter accounts, you want to exercise extreme caution if doing so, because you never want to mix. Bad things can happen sometimes if you're mixing your personal with your corporate. If you do have that situation, so just be aware of that. But anyway, it's a great tool. Let me show you some of the ways that we could use this tool. First, you want to share posts and links that you find interesting. This is another way to engage. So take 15 minutes a day, over the course of the day, maybe not all at once, but 5 minutes every hour or something, to go look at your feeds and share something that you like. Mike here is a gentleman who works with the PR firm that we use. Their stuff is always good. I like to share it. So you want to share that post. Usually you get a thank you for sharing, if nothing else. By the way, if somebody shares something that you sent out, you want to thank them for retweeting that. Just, again, a common courtesy engagement thing. In addition to that, you want to follow employees of your clients and of your targets, okay? So, for instance, let's say that you're recruiting for a particular skill set at that particular client, if you're an outsourced recruiter, or you're doing some internal recruiting for your company, you want to follow, and you're a large company, you want to follow other employees to gauge what's happening within that client. What's the culture like? What are the topics of interest? What's being shared commonly across these employees? Again, it's another great practice. HubSpot's some software that we use. Love their stuff. I love all their folks, so I like to keep an eye on what they're talking about. It helps me out, so I follow HubSpot. By the way, it's another good lesson for you. We don't always have to be consulting or recruiting oriented. We can simply keep up to date with some of the things that are going to help us improve our efforts. So that's another way to use your list, another way to use TweetDeck. You want to acknowledge meaningful events. This is an excellent way to engage. Okay, so Dr. Myers here is talking about a new gig he's got at SEO Moz. Congratulate them. If you see some kind of event, some kind of meaningful event that the person's talking about, you want to reach out and say, hey, that's great. How'd you get the job? Ask them about it. If it's something that you care about, let me give you an example of that. Neil here is talking about social media channel hacking and how do you recover, what do you do? Maybe I don't know what that is, and I might be interested in it. So I'm going to say, hey, Neil, good post. That was interesting, but can you fill me in? Does this happen to you? Has this, is this a big deal? Is this happening a lot? You want to ask questions. And again, with your candidate marketplace, you don't want to just say, hey, do you need a job today kind of thing. That's really kind of a 90s way of doing our recruiting. Eventually you want to get to that question, but I think the first thing you want to ask is ask them questions about what they have going on, the challenges, the projects they're working on, or hey, I recruit in this space, and I notice you talk a lot about X. Is X an up-and-coming trend, or people paying to get trained on it? Hey, thanks for listening and answering my question. Ask them for help, right? Ask them for something that they are interested in. I think that's an excellent way to use Twitter to engage that candidate marketplace. All right, let me shift gears one more time so you get another third-party tool. This one's called PostPost. You can find it at postpost.com. This is a great way to search just your network. As you add followers, it begins to get a little unruly, and it's tough to search just your feed. However, this tool lets you do that. So this searches only the people that you're following. It doesn't go any further than that. What's great about this tool, though, is it crawls all these links. So if I search for, in this case, social media recruiting, the copy of the tweet might not have said much about social media recruiting, but within the link, whatever was shared, and you can see here how to recruit with social media. So you can kind of see that the tool is really an excellent way to find out who's talking about what across my feed. And it actually does that. It shows, hey, here's all the people that returned some hits based upon your search for social media recruiting. So again, an excellent tool to mine the value of your Twitter feed and to gauge your candidate marketplace a little bit more intimately. So let's say a requirement comes across your desk and you're not too quite sure about the requirement. You can search, hey, that particular skill set or requirement and gain some immediate information from Twitter. All right, I know I'm kind of running at a quick clip here, but there's lots to cover. I want to keep at it. So let me switch gears just one more time and talk about tweet chats, because remember, we're talking about engagement here. Twitter chats are probably one of the best ways to do this. I love Twitter chats. I don't get as much time to engage them today as say 2-3 years ago, but they still exist. And what they are is basically a specific day, usually an hour, half hour during that day, usually once a week, where like-minded people come together to discuss a topic, and that topic is identified by a hashtag. Usually has chat in the nature of it, like blog chat, for instance, is one that I'll frequent sometimes. It's very conversational in nature. There's usually like 4 to 10 questions that they'll ask over the course of the hour, and they'll go right down the list of the questions. So they'll throw the question out, and people give their opinions. And it's an excellent way to engage, to identify new people to follow. You'll find if you participate, by the way, you don't have to. You could simply listen. But if you participate, you will be able to gain a lot of new followers just by the insight that you offer. That kind of cryptic, if you search Google for schedule of Twitter chats, you'll find this page. But I just kind of put the URL up there for you. But this what you're looking at here is this will actually show you all the known Twitter chats that are happening as of, at least this was a couple weeks ago. And there's more added every day. By the way, how can you use this to engage your marketplace? Again, we talk a lot about talent community building, right? Sometimes it's lip service and people just want to add people to the resume database. Well, it's not really recruiting, I don't think. I think it's more really recruiting administration than anything else. Actual recruiting and engaging that candidate marketplace, you could eventually even start or host a Twitter chat around a particular skill set that you're recruiting for. Just be the arbiter or be the one that motivates people to come together to improve the value that's being shared over Twitter. That's an excellent tip for you in your recruiting journeys. All right, how do you manage these things? You have another tool called TweetChat. You go to tweetchat.com, and basically all you do up top here is you can sign into it using your Twitter account, sign in your name there, blog chat. This is a particular chat that I saw happens on Sunday, and I click go. What this tool does is it actually serves up all the tweets that are happening at that particular time. So it searches Twitter for the blog chat hashtag and throws all those tweets up here. Now the tool is pretty useful because a couple things. One, as you're tweeting, if I want to contribute, it automatically appends the hashtag, so I don't have to worry about the hashtag. It's just when I'm in this window, I know I'm in that chat. It also controls the refresh rate. If you have a popular Twitter chat, then these things roll by at a very high rate of speed, so you could slow it down to, hey, don't refresh my screen for every 3 seconds, something like that. It lets me profile or feature, even block users. Okay, so if Alexa here says something I find interesting, I could highlight her with this little blue bar, so then I'll see immediately whenever Alexa has said something of interest. So again, let's get back to recruiting. This is an excellent way. You can kind of be an observer of these chats. You don't have to necessarily participate, but if you see people that might be a good target for the candidate marketplace or might introduce you to a broader sub-segment of it, then you want to identify who they are and follow them. The tool lets you favorite or retweet instantly, so I could, hey, look, I find this one interesting. I'm going to go ahead and save that one to my favorites or retweet it. And it also lets me follow people right from the tool, so it's a great tool. So how do I determine what's happening and what I should talk about and how popular these things are? Yet another tool, this one's called Popscene. You can find it at topsy.com. And this is a free analytic tool. The reason it's free is it gives you only about 30 days of tweet volume to look at. If you want more, you have to pay for it. What's great about this is I've typed in 3 chats. Blog chat, this is a marketing chat that happens on Mondays, and Journ chat. And then I said, hey, compare these 3. And you can see the volume. You can see kind of what days they're on because that's when the tweet volume spikes, okay? But you can see that blog chat's the most popular. That at its height, it averages 800 tweets in that hour, over any given time. It's kind of like a rolling type of thing here. So it'll let you kind of identify whether these things are active. So that previous resource that lists the Twitter chats out, use that resource, use Topsy to type it in to see how well traveled it is, and it'll help you determine whether it's worth your time or not. Another way to use this tool, again, we're talking about engagement here, is discover some of the trends that are happening in the candidate marketplace that you're after and see how and where and why they might be trending in the volume. If there's a steady volume increase like cloud computing, or this week the Consumer Electronics Show happened, so social TV was a big buzz term during the beginning part of this week. So we might want to look at social TV and how social TV was improving. And by the way, a certain programmer might care about that, so now I have information, or at least a perspective to share. You'll notice here I can actually share this chart right over Twitter. So this might be a good habit to get into as well. We talked about sharing over Buffer. Share over Topsy as well. Come in here, search for a trend, and then share it out and ask if this trend's relevant, if people are seeing the same thing or something of that nature. This is ways we can kind of engage that community. All right, so look, I went over quite a bit, so let me kind of review. I talked about TweetDeck. That's the that's the Twitter client runs on your desktop or within Chrome that's owned by Twitter to manage multiple columns. We talked about Social Bro. Social Bro is that way to find and identify interesting users for you to engage with or listen to or to follow. Buffer, an excellent way. I love Buffer, one of my favorite apps. Excellent way to fill up your Twitter feed with information that you want to share with your Twitter followers. PostPost, a way to really mine and investigate some of the information that's being shared across your immediate Twitter network. Twitter feed lets you use an RSS feed to send tweets to your Twitter feed, and then Topsy to identify recurring trends. So look, what's the recommendation here? If you're a beginner, don't get too overwhelmed. Just simply start using it. I would recommend this left column here. If you're more advanced, then you can maybe get involved in the right column, but that's how we kind of organize these. But I do, like I suggested earlier, if you follow these tactics, you'll first of all, you'll gain more value immediately. You won't find yourself spending entirely too much time on it. As a matter of fact, it allows you to improve your time efficiency, and then you'll find yourself engaging with significantly, exponentially more candidates than ever before. All right, so get started today. If you don't have an account, don't hesitate. Go ahead and start it. If you are a beginner, you have to follow somebody. So I always suggest, hey, follow celebrities, follow some news outlets, follow your peers, identify your clients or customers and follow them. Follow some big brands. Like if you're a Starbucks drinker or a Dunkin' Donuts coffee drinker, follow those. Every now and again you'll get a coupon or something anyway. But you want to see how the big brands are using it. Hey, I'm going to encourage you to follow us, right? We have 4 Twitter feeds, Yo Jobs, that's where we broadcast our job postings, RPO, which is all about recruitment process outsourcing. The Seamless Workforce is all about workforce certainty and managing the entire workforce. Our Yo Corporate account is our corporate identity. Mine is, I mentioned it earlier, is at Joel Caparella. At Joel Caparella. Follow me too. Say hello. I'm happy to say hi back to you. The next thing you want to do is create lists. You want to share articles from your LinkedIn today. Identify at least one Twitter chat and participate in it. Start to think about maybe hosting one yourself. And then engage other users by sharing or commenting on their links. And oh, by the way, if you have content from your company that is produced on a regular basis, Twitter is one of those tools where you really can't share it too many times. And what I mean by that is Facebook, you probably don't want to share the same link more than once because it's a more personal and intimate communication platform. Twitter, however, if I get to follow up to, say, 50 to 100 people that are active, I'm only going to see a very small fraction of the total tweets that come across my feed, depending upon when I'm logged in. So don't be afraid to share the same link over Twitter multiple times. So at least 2, I would say 3 times daily if you have the content. All right, listen, I'm an East Coast guy. I know I talk pretty quickly. I know I talked pretty quickly on this one, but had a lot to cover. So I haven't even looked at the question section right now. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And in the meantime, if you do have any questions, you want to use your little control panel over there to go ahead and type the questions in. I'm going to enter as many as I possibly can here. So, copy of the slides. Yeah, we'll do our best to get the copy of the slides. We are recording the presentation, so we'll make it available on our YouTube channel. So if it was of interest to you, you could certainly log in and see the YouTube version of this, and I would encourage you to share it around. Question here about, and actually I already kind of answered it, but this is a little bit of a different nuance. They want to know whether or not it's appropriate to share content that's been shared by many people in their company or elsewhere. And, absolutely. I think the best way to use the tool is to broadcast things that are of interest to you, things that because that's how you identify. Again, it's a personal thing as well as a corporate thing or a recruiting tool. So we want it to reflect who we are as individuals. So that would be my recommendation. It's a question about actually just came in from Debbie here. Is there any easy way to search for specific people? I find it hard to see if candidates that I've spoken to have a Twitter account not as searchable as LinkedIn or Facebook. That's actually a good question. If you type in the person's name, if you go to Google, actually Google's pretty good on this. First of all, Social Bro is probably the best way. You can type in the user's name. If they use their actual name on Twitter, you'll find it. Matter of fact, I find Social Bro's search a little bit more robust than Twitter search. However, on Twitter, you can do the same thing, search for their name, or Google does probably the best. What I always do is I just search for the name, first name, last name, space on Twitter, and that will tell you. Again, if they use their name, you're going to find them. So if that's not working for you, you want to go ahead and do that. But again, that's the way I would go about doing that. Now, I agree with you. The Twitter search is probably the most challenging to use sometimes, so I would investigate these other tools. Christopher's asking about the cost of the tools. Everything I showed you has a pay option for more robust features, but everything I showed you is freely accessible. So there's free versions of everything I showed you. By the way, I don't pay for any of it. So, you get to a point where if you're really a power user, you might want to pay the $5 a month for the power features. But everything you saw was a free tool. There was a tip earlier about how to determine if your content is shared. Well, there's two ways. If you're using Buffer, Buffer actually provides you with analytics. So if you go, and actually, let me go ahead and show you probably the best way to do it. So I go into my Buffer app, and I click on my analytics. And by the way, you can see that Buffer lets me share it to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, so you can do more than just Twitter. But here's my Buffer, so you can see what's being scheduled today. Now, what's nice about this, they changed this interface, so if I want to bump this Microsoft tweet up, I can bump it up there. So now it's going to go out at 4 o'clock rather than 8:30 tonight. But I could look at the analytics, and I haven't even looked at this today, so let's take a look. Well, not a whole lot of activity, but I do have this one. An interesting survey about Americans confused by how Google makes money. Then it had one person mention it, and if I click into the mention, it'll actually show me who did mention it. So this is what I meant by the analytics. So you can see this one here. So here, this one was clicked once. What the clicks means is that somebody actually went in and clicked on that link. Down here's another one. It'll show you who's favorited it. This one received 1 retweet and 2 clicks. So it's again, it's a pretty useful tool, and you're going to find that, again, don't be offended by, these are small numbers, but that's okay. The fact that you get 2 or 3 people clicking, it means that they're highly likely to share it, or it's interesting to them. It usually means that people are reading that tweet as well, and they at least find it interesting. So what it does is it kind of brands you in their minds, if you will. If I could use that kind of analogy. All right. Christopher also asked about, I'm looking for university Twitter accounts in a geographical area. How would I go about and do that? I would, again, if the Social Bro lets you go ahead and do that. So typically, schools and universities, education facilities, and whatnot will identify their location. Now, it's tough if they haven't done that. In your Twitter feed, they'll ask you to actually identify your location, but it's not a required field. So what I would suggest is using Social Bro, because it'll let you key in on that field of location, either a zip code or a state or a city, and then you can search by that criteria. So that's probably the best way to go about and do that. And then there's a question about whether or not I need to use Google Plus sign-in, and really didn't reference Google Plus. I did suggest that your lists on Twitter are similar to your Google Plus circles. But really, there's ways to connect Twitter and Google Plus. I wouldn't recommend that I use each social outlet different. So I wouldn't connect the two. But really, there's nothing you need to know about Google Plus to effectively use Twitter as a recruiting tool. Okay, it's about the end of the question. So listen, like I said earlier, if you are committed to using the tools the way we discussed today, I guarantee you're going to increase your level of engagement. You're going to increase your number of followers, etc. So I would highly encourage you to do it. I can't underscore enough, however, that it's a social tool. Let's all remember that it's conversational in nature. So broadcasting is great. It only works as a recruiting tool if I'm actually engaged. And what I mean by that is if I'm actually talking with the candidates in the marketplace that I'm identifying. So I do hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions after this, feel free to connect with me on Twitter. And again, we'll make you aware of when the video is up on YouTube for you to share with your colleagues and your friends, and you can wow and amaze them. So thanks a lot for your time, and have a great rest of your day.